Good morning. It is barely 8 o'clock. I'm a little late getting out here and they're a little anxious. Poor chicks. It is barely 8 o'clock and it is already 70 degrees outside. The sun hasn't even come up yet. It's supposed to be 83 and I'm afraid it's going to be a really muggy day. We still have a lot of standing water and I can actually feel the moisture in the air. It is hard to believe that my main flock is over a year old. I brought these little ones home March 17th and they were at least a day or two old when I got them. They quickly grew out of their wash tub and into a large dog crate. They were so cute, I could have sat and watched them all day. It seemed like within weeks they were in their own little chicken coop. I knew that they would be growing out of their coop quickly, so I got to work refurbishing the old coop in the backyard. It hadn't been used in 30 years. Trees were growing in it and it was literally falling down. But I got it repaired and it became my chickens' new home. Good morning, I'm Kathleen Pate, and this is my Alabama farm life 1 year later. This month is my year anniversary of living here on the farm. And even though we came up to the farm several times a year before moving up here and doing chores, there was still a lot that needed to be done. One of the things that seemed to take forever was getting this area cleaned up, getting the canvas back over the truck and getting it protected from the weather. Hopefully one day I'll be able to get it fixed. It was this time last year that we had seedlings coming up. I'm not a stranger to growing things. I grew quite a few things in containers when I lived in Florida, but the environment here in Alabama is totally different. My first attempt to sow seeds in this rocky clay red mud was a disappointment. Unfortunately, none of my seeds came up, so I changed my tactics. I bought some asparagus crowns and I bought a little apple tree and I planted them there in the orchard, and they actually came up. I did make an attempt to do some foraging last year. I think these are blackberries, but they could be dewberries. The figs, the pears, and the blueberries, they never fail to produce wonderful fruits. This was my first attempt at a sunflower, and I actually got one to bloom. I planted squash and cucumbers, but unfortunately the bugs ate them. Our tomatoes fared a little better. but between the deer and the woodchucks and the heat, we really didn't produce a whole lot. In midsummer, we planted some beans, and they came up really nice. We had a nice little crop, but it got cold early, and the beans never got large enough to really harvest anything. That's my first watermelon. I was very, very proud of that watermelon. It was the only one I grew. I had a couple of cantaloupe. Woodchucks ate those. And I think I had a pumpkin. Peppers did really well. And I had some mustards and some radishes that came up. But it is amazing how many critters got into the garden and ate, even with the fencing up. That's why we're hoping putting up the fencing this year will keep the deer completely out of the fields. We planted some turnips this past fall, but they didn't even come up that well, and the deer didn't really mess with them either. I failed at managing pest control on the trees this year, and I didn't get any peaches or nectarines. But my asparagus and my elderberry actually look pretty good. Very proud of that fact. Now to get my apple tree to grow. But my big chore to do last year was to get this trash pile cleaned up and out of the front yard, and I succeeded in doing that. It was in March that I bought my first chainsaw and started working on our greenhouse area. In March of 2020, there wasn't anything here but the idea of a greenhouse. My late father-in-law built this PVC frame, but it was starting to crack and fall apart, so I went ahead and tore it down. It was late March when I sent my husband a text message telling him that this was my new office space. And it still is. When I look at all my pictures from last year, actually spring was already here around this time. Sun was out, we had a lot of water on the ground, and we were already experiencing the spring thunderstorms, although not as bad last year as it has been this year. One of the things I enjoyed the most was taking our daily walk, mostly in the morning, with my dogs. I wanted to explore my new world and find all its secrets. I was always afraid one of them would run off, but they would not run off without the other. So I always had one on a leash, and it worked really well. Tank and Justice were still here on the farm with me, learning how to be farm dogs. All right, guys. It's really hard to tell, but I think this is the mouth of the spring. And I'm not getting down there to look. Nothing better than dogs having fun at the mouth of the spring. Come on, let's go. Good girl. It's been just about a year since I moved here to the farm, and it has been a wild ride. And I'm looking at just a little over 6 months since I've been on YouTube. I have to say that the most positive thing that has happened to me in this year of heartache is joining the YouTube community. I have met so many wonderful people, and I feel very blessed and very happy and very thankful to be here. Thank you all for joining me on this little trip to the past. You guys have an absolutely wonderful day.